Yeah, just give me a minute. Okay. So, good morning, good evening, good morning to the folks in US, and good evening to the people in India. Welcome to this important talk. Um, so my name is Mahesh Admankar. I'm a PhD scholar based at University of Massachusetts in Boston. Um, so I request the participants to mute yourself so that it's convenient for the speaker and everyone to hear their thoughts. So before we invite the speaker of this morning, I would like to give a brief introduction to the Boston Study Group, as well as Professor Sukumar. Um, so Boston Study Group, popularly known as BSG, is a non-profit organization dedicated to working towards a just and equitable society. It organizes study groups, monthly meetings and lecture series, and several other social activities in Boston area to create educational and organizing infrastructure to carry forward its mission. Um, BSG is inspired by those who worked for human welfare and annihilation of caste system and untouchability, beginning with Lord Gautama Buddha all the way to Sant Ravidas to Savitribai Phule and Ramabai and Jyotibai Phule to Periyar and Ambedkar. Um, BSG's membership is composed of individuals, families, students, scholars, academics, and workers who share a vision of equality and upliftment of people. BSG creates support structures to empower the students from historically caste oppressed Bahujan communities. So this is a brief introduction to the Boston Study Group. So now let's turn to introducing the speaker, Professor N. Sukumar. Um, he is a faculty member, a senior faculty member who teaches political science at the University of Delhi in India. His areas of interest include Indian political thought, Ambedkar and Dalit Bahujan studies, human rights, and social exclusion. Currently, he is engaged on Dalit citizenship and anti-caste utopias. He is also a member advisor for many professional bodies in many central universities and other institutions. He has published widely in research journals and has been involved in both national and international research projects on poverty, public institutions, caste-based atrocities, and discrimination. Apart from the classroom, Professor Sukumar also actively involved in grassroots people struggles and is a on-ground activist. Um, so today's topic um, on caste. So Professor Sukumar wrote this book. I'll give a brief introduction to the book as well. The book uh, titled Caste Discrimination and Exclusion in Indian Universities, a critical reflection. Um, it's released in this year, and this book studies the exclusion and discrimination that is meted out to scheduled caste students in the Indian higher education system and the psychosocial consequences of such practices. It foregrounds the conceptual debates around caste, exclusion, and reservations in Indian academia, discussing the social dominance and the roots of prejudice in the university spaces. So with this brief introduction, I shared the format of the lecture. So Professor Sukumar is going to speak for next 1 hour on this topic on his book and the his own findings from this project and his own observation and thoughts. After that, we'll have like 20 to 25 minutes question and answer session. Um, Please feel free to ask questions either in English or Hindi. We understand the limitations of language. Um, Thank you so much. Thanks for joining. And over to Professor Sukumar.
Well, thank you so much, Mahesh, for introducing me. Friends, Jai Bhim, first of all, Jai Bhim to all of you, and a very warm good morning to there. And friends from here, it's like almost good evening or good night, but thanks for joining. Hi, Ashok, joining from India also. And I sincerely thank the Boston Study Group because I have gone through the Boston Study Group activities and other things after inviting me. Though I came to know about this through Ashok and others, and I felt so happy to get in touch with such a group who are doing these academic and other kind of initiatives which sensitizes and try to make our own community aware about issues which is happening around the world. Of course, Hemant and other organizing members of this organization, Mahesh, Sanjay, very senior Sanjay, and there are many, who are all Ambedkarites. I would like to really thank you for being part of this book discussion series today. Now, this book, Caste Discrimination and Exclusion in Indian Universities, this book is not, it took for me more than 13 to 14 years for me to document the evidences for to prove that there is caste and that caste discrimination which prevails in the university spaces. Before I get into the serious lecture series, why we need to discuss about this caste discrimination, especially when it comes to an Indian context, we are talking about this. And also, which is prevailing, in other parts of the world, like, for example, equality labs. What is that it is talking about, in different parts, especially in US, is also, need to be seriously looked in. And therefore, when it comes to caste, it prevails wherever, Hinduism or Hindu religious groups who strictly practices this caste system, wherever they go, as Ambedkar rightly said that, caste will become a global problem once if, Hindus move around. So therefore, it is not only confined to, India, but also it is spreading across the, globe, and it is deeply entering into the institutional setup, institutional, concept or mechanism. Therefore, it is very important to understand and discuss about these things. Well, on 18th July this year, in Lok Sabha, in government of, in the Lok Sabha, the ministry stated that the skew against the disadvantaged groups was deeper than the overall average in 2021, while talking about the IIT's admissions or dropouts. And they had given a data which is really, more concerned towards to, when it comes to the caste discrimination in these so-called, within quotes, meritorious institutions, where certain IITs doesn't even allowing people to join in their courses. Even if they join, 50% of the students, SC, ST students, are dropping out. And Indian Express has taken a series of, stories recently, what is happening in IITs. And then, in fact, the union minister, HRD minister, who himself said that, much recently, I would like to, because I'm giving you the background, about the public institutions, where how it is happening and why we are supposed to, seriously think about these kind of developments. So the union minister tells that, why is that only, government is supposed to be funded to the public institutions. Therefore, dropping the public funding for the public institutions is becoming a major, initiatives by the state. And this is a very serious thing. And many public universities are under serious, stake. And education is no longer is going to be a public good. But what is happening? But now it depends on the vagaries of the market. Who can bid for education? Who can bid for their children's education? Can the marginalized bid for their children's education in the higher educational institutions? So state has given up its idea, and it is funding more than 100 crore rupees for the institution which is not yet to be started. It's completely private managed, corporatization of education. And there are a lot of Save Education committees which are struggling against this privatization. And therefore, the minister's statement of public funding is not necessary for the, public funding is not necessary for the public institutions like universities. And thirdly, much recent example of caste discrimination, which I can give you and then move on the context, is that in Jammu University, a professor who is supposed to become the head within 10 days span of time, who is a Dalit professor, his name is Chandrasekhar, and he was pushed towards committing suicide. We call it as institutional murders. And I'll give you the background of these institutional murders from AIMS till this Chandrasekhar over a period of time. So the entire institution comes together and files a complaint on him, fabricating the cases. Therefore, he was pushed to such an extent where he killed himself. That's the much recent example which I can give. Now, why did I did this study? Almost 14 years before, when it's more than that. I think in 2006-8, when Senthil Kumar, a research scholar in Hyderabad University, where I studied for almost more than 9.5 years, more than 10 years, and in the hostel where I stayed, and this scholar killed himself. Or we can say that, the institution pushed him to such an extent, he killed himself. And in fact, I came to know about it, and then I was not able to sleep for a while. Why I was not able to sleep for a while was nothing but his body was found after 48 hours of his death. That means the complete collapse of the human relations within the institutional setup. Friends never bothered, lab mates never bothered to see whereabouts, nor supervisor, nor hostel mates, nor wing mates, nor fellow, peer group. It's a complete failure of the institutional mechanism, institutional setup. So what happened to this kind of, spaces? So I wrote a small 4 pages locating myself as a subject in the university space. And I presented that paper in Delhi University, in one of the constituent colleges where they organized a seminar. And I thought that, let me go and present this paper. So when I presented this paper, for my utter surprise, the enlightened, within quotes, enlightened academic, audience, they were not believed that, look, in these times, in modern times, can such kind of discrimination happens? So therefore, it cannot be believed. And they tried to throw onus on me to prove, because, also there was certain comments like, no, you belongs to scheduled caste, therefore you are, being biased towards to, your own while arguing. So I felt that, it is in social sciences, it is very much important for me to prove that, with data, to prove with data. Therefore, I did this study in two different phases. After this paper has been published, and then I thought that it is very important, and there was huge response, massive response for this paper, and from many corners there were suggestions that you need to work out on that. So therefore, I picked up, and then I did this study in two different phases. And as a first generation Dalit in academia, as I said, the onus is on me to prove the veracity of exclusionary practices in higher educational institutions to an unbelieved academic audience. Still, there are professors who thinks that these things cannot happen. A BHU professor in one of the meetings who was mentioning that no, in our university, it doesn't happen. Stories and stories of discrimination can be, mapped in universities, especially in IITs and IIMs. And before, therefore, this motivated me to probe into the lived experiences of Dalit students on campuses by focusing more intensely by the ways through which these students create meanings for their experiences. They create meaning for their experiences in these universities. What happened with Rohit Vemula? What happened with Payal Tadvi? What happened with Muthukrishnan? What happened with Chandrasekhar, the faculty? A number of stories. I was looking into the newspaper. Somebody shared a clipping on social media. In 1 month, 6 students from IITs, different IITs, committed suicide. 6 students just passed. I can tell you the month also. Why is that? Such serious problem is not being considered seriously by the sociologists of this country. Why is that the highest number of suicides which are committed by the students are not being taken serious by the academics in this country? So therefore, what I did, so frequently these processes go unnoticed. They don't. Like for example, who cares? 6 students committed suicide in IITs. Therefore, nothing. There is nothing now. What is being debated within the media is something completely different. Completely different. Apart from the field data, what I did, I also utilized my own experiences. Both as a student and then as a faculty, wherein I was also called upon to perform my caste identity as part of the official procedure of the university system, recruitments and many other things. So therefore, whatever I have gathered for the past 14 years has come out this as a book. And so therefore, I picked up 600 students. It's not 1 or 2 students. Let me bring sample, my sample size here. The sample size is 600 students cutting across disciplines, 5 state universities and 5 central universities. And then within this, disciplines, I also brought gender, subcaste, because, it is not that only, we can understand discrimination in particular context. We need to understand discrimination in different layers, how it operates within the university system, within the peer group, within the classroom. That I'll come. And then later on, what happened after identifying the samples? I went to the field. I did some pilot study, came back and sat for 3 months to work out on my questionnaire. It took 3 months for me to work out on my questionnaire, which has 550, questions and sub-questions. It's quite lengthy questionnaire because, I thought I need to study this so in-depthly. And probably I think this is the first book. There are certain articles and many other academic work has come out. And probably now after Rohit Vemula's incident, there are n number of scholars who are working on these issues. And many students, approaching me for, material and other things. So therefore, in near future, there would be more studies about this problem, caste discrimination problem in universities is going to come on. And now, before I get into my chapterization and my data, I just want to highlight here about this data, which has been also been collected through RTI. The Indian Institute of Management's 2022 data I'm giving, 2022 this year, for admissions into PhD. Indian Institute of Managements. I'm giving you the data of 13 IIMs. I'm not giving you the entire, I'm not reading the IIMs names and other things. I'm giving you the grand total. And we need to understand that when public institutions are shrinking, when private institutions are encroaching on this, how is that, we need to tolerate such kind of, initiatives by the government through new exclusion policy. It is not new national education policy. I call it as new exclusion policy. I call it as new exit policy for this, communities. So therefore, this 13 IIMs data, if I give you, out of 13 IIMs, I'm giving you OBC students who applied for PhD. 628 OBC students applied for PhD. Now, more OBCs are supposed to come onto the streets and fight against these Brahminical institutions. 600 and out of 628 applications who applied, 269 applications shortlisted and 54 got selected in these 13 IIMs. Now coming to scheduled caste students. Applied 310, shortlisted 112 and selected 15. Probably they felt that 15% is for scheduled caste and let us give one seat for this 15% and close this matter. Only 15 scheduled tribes. Applied 96, shortlisted 49 and selected only 7. Again, the same, percentage number. And 8 IIMs did not admit a single ST student. 8 IIMs. 5 IIMs did not admit a single SC student. And IIM Nagpur and Shillong did not admit any SC, ST, OBC students. Now, imagine this is the background. And IITs, lot of data is there. I don't want to get into that because I want to talk about my book. So how do we see this kind of blatant way of violating the constitutional provisions that has been given to the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes and other backward castes and many other marginalized groups? And IIMs, IITs, directors openly say that they're the guardians of merit and therefore the merit will get diluted, and they will, whenever there is a question hour in the parliament, they will say that we will constitute committees and the committees will go into the dustbin. Thorat committee on this discrimination on AIMS is the best example where it is gathering dust rather than the government never attempted to implement it. Never attempted to implement it. In 2013, UGC comes out with a circular about how to maintain equity and try to address the problem of discrimination, and it clearly mentions about what amounts discrimination and what is supposed to be done by these institutions. No institution has taken a serious cognizance of it. In fact, my entire questionnaire runs through these kind of, reports and gathering all kinds of information. And then we try to see that, how serious this problem is and how deeply it is rooted. These prejudices and stigma is deeply rooted into the institutional mechanism. Then, so what I did, in fact, I tried to divide this book into 6 chapters. Why did I did that? In fact, this title itself is very interesting. I proposed the title as Gate Crashing into Gurukuls, Caste Discrimination in Indian Universities. For whatever may be the reasons, publisher or said, no, we need to change the title. Maybe they want to make money out of it, I guess, let them. But my concern is to reach this, information towards the people. So I compromised there. But when the peer reviewers' comments, when I read that, the interesting thing is that the peer reviewers' comments was really, not at all encouraging. They said that, how come, you can use certain words like Saraswati portals, gate crashing, they doesn't like this kind of terminology. So they asked me to tone down the language, which again I did. But anyway, there are many other publications now where I'm going to approach, and I'm going to come out with a very thought-provoking kind of initiatives. And let me tell, I have utilized only 20% of my data. 80% of data is still lying. It's a huge voluminous data. So when I was working on this book, in fact, I utilized pandemic for this purpose. Therefore I said that, when I want to study on suicides, a chapter, a separate chapter for suicides, on suicides or institutional murders, I went and asked a very renowned sociologist in this country who works on caste and many other things. Of course, everybody have their own limitations. I'm not justifying it, again, I asked that, is there any serious work that has been done on student suicides? He said no. He said no. So therefore, I thought that it is very important to bring, at least, there were, Anup, who is running this, who has that, Insight Foundation, now who is in Wardha, who mapped the entire, this, institutional murders, and, came out and he brought very clearly the data, in which IITs and, IIMs and universities, how many Dalit students, committed suicide or being killed by the system. So I thought that, one chapter is very important for this book. Therefore, I bought one chapter into this. And then when I was running through the interviews, I found certain personal narratives as a very interesting thing. So I adopted interpretative phenomenological analysis as a method and identified around 10 to 12 interesting case narratives of the respondents. And I also got some of the secondary sources which the Livewire and other online sources has provided certain narratives for me. So therefore, I thought, let me substantiate my data with the experiences. So therefore, I brought one chapter. And that, and that chapter, is really very, it really touched the core of the concerns. And that therefore, what I did, I titled it as The Social History of Indian Academia. And of course, these, suicides, chapter, which I titled with Rohit Vemula's, a very famous, My Birth is My Fatal Accident, Social Semantics of Dalit Student Suicides. And after finishing this entire work, I went and requested one professor to give me a feedback. So he helped me a lot, in fact. And he said that, Sukumar, yes, you have your data and all these things are very important. Where is the data that belongs to scheduled castes and other communities, and you need to bring that data, which it is very important that as a secondary or as a primary, data. So I visited, I collected those data from Aishi reports, 10 years data, and I tried to compare that, the other categories and scheduled caste categories, social sciences, technical, disciplines, universities, different institutional setups, and I tried to bring the data, hamara hissa kahan pe hai, where is my share in this entire, we are this much, and are we able to really do justice for this? So therefore, this book shaped in different, phases. Though I thought, okay, whatever I have, the data which I collected, that would be fine, and I can. Now, coming to my work. Now, what I did, I tried to map discrimination in different spaces within the university system. And that spaces are nothing but, I'm not giving the theory, because caste as social capital, many things which I can bring, because of lack of time, I'm not able, I don't want to bring those theories which I have adopted. I've adopted theories on stigma, theories on discrimination, theories on identities, and also how certain kind of knowledge discourse and social construction of knowledge discourse, and who produces knowledge, and different varied kind of things which I have brought in my first chapter. So therefore, I don't want to get into that. I try to now brought the educational apartheid. It's an educational apartheid. Okay, and how university becomes a microcosm of the prevalent caste planning, because see, the spaces within the universities are filled by the casteist system, like what the replica of village can be seen in the university space. Therefore, Velivada comes in Hyderabad University. When Rohit, Dunta Prashant, and many other people were thrown out, so the Velivada comes in, and it's literal a boycott not to be part of the institution. So the replica of village caste planning within the university system need to be understood. And as I already mentioned, that the 2013 guidelines becomes a very important thing. Therefore, what I did, there are certain indicators of caste in educational institutions like language, vocabulary, accent and expression. Apart from caste, there are many other things also. Communication and social skills, mannerisms, names and surnames. If you are a Kota child, then finish. You are a Kota child and you are Ambedkar Wadi, and then your entire future is being narrowed down to a particular identity. And then local and residence, dress and looks, body language, and which are reflected through peer groups, teacher-student relations, gendered identities, and so on and so forth. Therefore, this social discrimination or exclusion leads to deprivation, mental block, humiliation, identity crisis, inferiority complex, communication gap, prejudices, escapism, suspicion, isolation, and crisis/conflict, etc. And in many cases results in dropouts and suicides. See how exclusion, all these things, results to such kind of, concerns. In fact, all these things which I have tried to map in the book, very few, not all, because as I said, 80% of the data is yet to come. And apart from the data which I have collected, this study also analyzes government reports on caste problems in campuses, secondary literature on caste, ideas on reservations, merit, stigma, all humiliation, exclusion, apart from the conceptual work theorizing on this academia. Now, how do we understand caste in the classroom? classroom becomes a battleground, from admissions to classroom. And all these 10 universities, I did not name that, but a smart student, a smart reader can easily map and assess while reading the book which universities I try to study, because of sensitivities and other things, all kinds of things. As when it comes to this epistemic injustices that is happening in the university spaces, the first generation of Dalit learners negotiate their spaces bereft of any positive role models, something akin in what Gloria Steinem remarks in her book, The Revolution Within. They utilize the constitutional provision, and where, for generations, they suffered, and they come, and then they want to prove themselves as the meritorious, students. Therefore, the pseudo-meritorious has a problem for their own existence. And they try to negotiate, and, when there is a kind of, undermining their self-respect and self-esteem. Therefore, there is a struggle, educate, organize, and agitate comes from, this kind of, background. The epistemic semantic mechanism that keeps people in their place is still strong. Our marketplaces, schools, and cultural institutions tend to teach us to listen and to follow the privileged people who are in the power or within the university system. You have to listen. You can't question. If you question, then you are an anti-social or you are an anti-national. Criticism cannot be bared in academic institutions today. Suppose if you engage on Brahminism or Brahminical concerns, you are completely thrown out. The courses which has hit on the road, when I introduced Kancha Ailaya's books in Delhi University, there was hue and cry when Dalit Bahujan thought being introduced into the classroom. So therefore, what they are teaching, we have to listen. Now the things changed. People started questioning. The first generation learners, as students and teachers, they started engaging with the ideas. Therefore, so therefore the classroom becomes a very contested space. And this classroom is, when the question was asked that, who discriminates you in the classroom, there is a series of, the reasons for discrimination in Viva. I was reading, the present Haryana Public Service Commission's results just came out today or yesterday, I guess. The candidate who got 568 plus, roughly, it's not exact, who got 6 marks in Viva. In JNU, in fact, the entire institution thought that 100% Viva. Students went to the court. And, in JNU, like progressive institutions within court, that students used to get only 2 marks, who are the toppers in the entrance. So Viva becomes a major contested, concerns within the 368 students, 61.3% respondents. They said Viva is a problem. And why can't Viva interviews for selection committees, Vivas, or any other thing which is conducted through interview, why can't it be recorded? It needs to be recorded. Who is behaving with the Dalit students in what context? Irrelevant questions are asked to these Dalit students. And there are many explanations which I had given, as if that Dalit students will be interviewed by only Dalit faculty. And secondly, they will not even ask the area of interest which the student is showing for the further research. So therefore, you keep them out. To keep them out, you ask irrelevant questions. Therefore, they will be, and even if the student is doing well, they will reduce the marks so that they can place them in the reserved category, rather than, if you give more marks, they will encroach into the unreserved category, so that, they don't want such kind of things happen. It is very blatant. It is very blatant. And my data prove, if anybody says that there is no caste discrimination, throw this book on their face, as Mahesh was rightly mentioning that, across the globe, say that, this is the, data that has been, collected, and now you tell you are answerable to this problem. Now, and then Interestingly, the other thing which I would like to highlight is that, yeah, I will explain 3-4 tables and that's it. I'm not going to take much time because time is also our constraint. When it comes to perpetrators of discrimination in the classroom, see, my responses are multiple responses. One respondent can give 2-3 responses, 2-3 options, which it has been, identified. Like, upper caste students or, upper caste, which I'm not subscribing, which I did mention in this book. I'm not subscribing the upper, lower, middle, but to communicate more, for the academic communication, I'm using this. You have to excuse me for this. So when I asked students, 381 responses comes saying that yes, upper caste students discriminate us. And English medium students, 217 responses come saying that no, English medium students discriminate us. So language also, with caste, language also becomes a very significant reason for discrimination. Upper class students, 176 responses. Upper caste girl students, 119 responses. Backward caste students, 93 responses, or any other, 50. Students from subcaste. I just want to bring this also very important, because at times we tend to not to consider caste within the caste. We say that the others are discriminating us, but what about Dalit caste discriminating their own Dalit community students, subcaste community students? Therefore, 33 responses, not a small number. 33 responses come saying that there is a discrimination even within the scheduled caste. How do we understand this? See how it is being encroached into our minds. And in the narratives which I had given about these things, even a Hindu Dalit girl discriminates Christian Dalit girl. Religion also becomes a very important thing in when it comes to this discrimination context. A Hindu Dalit girl says that no, you are in the WhatsApp group, you are spreading your Christian identity. And again, both Dalits, both sufferers of untouchability, and they are all being completely abandoned by these Brahminical lobbies in the university spaces. But still, the Hindu Dalit girl or Hindu superior again, within the subcaste, they try to tend to discriminate. And there were many other things which are there. And I also asked that various forms of discrimination by the teachers, because teachers are very they're very shrewd, they're very problematic. In fact, the way they perpetuate discrimination is very subtle, at times direct. It's like it's very blatant. So marking and grading discrimination is must, and it prevails. As we know that viva, term papers, accepting you evaluating the unit tests or examination. So marking, grading becomes the one form of discrimination by the teachers. Language-based discrimination, again 262 responses. Favoritism against particular student, or community or region. हाँ वो अपना ही है, वो हमारा आंध्रा से है या महाराष्ट्र से है, or maybe from UP or Bihar. So if the teacher belongs to that particular, if the student belongs to that particular category, they will get more space among the teachers. Ideological beliefs, for the past 1.5 decades, this ideological discrimination is becoming a major problem. Like suppose the left ideologies are being opposed by right-wing ideologies, and right-wing and left-wing ideologies are also being equally opposing the Ambedkarite ideologies. And, the right-wing ideologies opposing the feminist ideologies. The right-wing ideology, again, opposing the minority, kind of, concepts. So if, based on the ideological things, that teachers try to blatantly discriminate. And what happening in recruitments today in this country is simply filling up the filthy academics into the university system, who want to teach about the ideology of Hindutva. They have problem with Ambedkarism. They have problem with Phuleism. They have problem with Periyar. They have problem with Tarabai Shinde. They have problem with Kanshiram. So therefore they keep on, filling all these, And interestingly, there is a slowly shift of the marginalized communities also towards to these kind of ideologies, partly because of, employment, which is really problematic. We need to problematize this as an academicians, who are sitting in these, places. Anyway, and then denial of opportunities, going abroad, getting fellowships, going for seminars, opportunities are being given to only few. Now, at least not, the digital world has democratized. At least many people are going, Mahesh, many other people who has went by utilizing these, digital platforms and knowing about certain opportunities. Rather than, the Bhadraloks are completely taken these institutions abroad. And here, the same. So therefore, opportunities are being completely scuttled. Preferential treatment for the socially privileged students, no reading material guidelines, non-cordial working relationships, gender-based discrimination, all these things were completely mapped in this book. Non-facilitating participation in the classroom, they will not facilitate. Even if Dalit students want to be part of a discourse, academic discourse, or a cultural function, they will completely, ignore them. And there will be a hierarchy to within the scholars, where the teachers will completely divide them to classify them that what is supposed that they have supposed to do what when there is any academic event. Suppose if there is a seminar, who will be receiving the guests, who will be moderating on the dais, and who will be taking care about the food. There is still that kind of caste division among the students is being created by these things. Anyway, then threat of attendance shortage, non-cooperation and rejection of thesis and chapters. I feel very proud when I see Sidhu Mani, a HCU student. In fact, I wrote about him in one of the papers, who was who went into the into depression. His supervisor, after supervising 18 months, says that no, your language is not good. So therefore, this boy went into depression, and to come out from the depression, he went and learned yoga. And if he would have been continued with that yoga in India, he would have not been a successful yoga teacher. Now he is giving training yoga to all celebrities in Russia. See how discrimination is so deeply, enrooted. So not aware, accepting the chapters. And in Punjab University, Ambedkar Students Association, 1.5 months they were on strike for the simple reason that their certificates were stopped. The reason is that government did not sanction the scholarships. I'll come to that scholarship slightly much. Then the next thing is that the fellowship scholarships. Scholarships, 80% of the students, they said that without scholarships, we cannot survive. And therefore, in my study, it has been proved. And stopping fellowships by the teachers in different forms. Like when Hyderabad University, I don't care, Hyderabad University, I studied, where this Hyderabad University is a casteist institution. Hyderabad University introduced the direct, the entrance for PhD, courses. This has become the norm in the country now. The UGC has adopted it. They don't want the Rajiv Gandhi Fellowship that has been introduced by Professor Thorat when he was UGC chairman. They don't want to equate this Rajiv Gandhi Fellowship with University Grants Commission Fellowship. What they did, they thought that with a lot of hard work and effort and merit, students write exam and get University Grants Commission UGC Fellowship. But these SC/ST boys and girls, they go, just they send the application with the proposal, and they are getting this kind of fellowship. So therefore, everybody, whoever gets whatever the scholarship, they have to write entrance, they have to clear entrance, then only they will get into the system. See how shrewd these institutions are. So fellowships are very important, and therefore, they keep on now changing. Name changing is a very fashion in India. So like, railway platforms, railway stations, cities are changed. They changed the fellowship name also. They don't want Rajiv Gandhi Fellowship name to be used for the fellowship. I'm not talking for any particular party, but, again, they reimpose the caste identity. Fellowship, SC/ST fellowships, fellowships for SC/STs. And see, again, you are trying to give that identity to the fellowship. And these fellowships, like, they feel envy, they feel very sarcastic. Acha, aapko abhi fellowship mil gaya. You are government son-in-law, no need to prepare, no need to study. Comments. And then the other kind of, things which I try to, figure out is that, after these fellowships, because fellowships has its own different issues, which I don't have much time. I will not deal with that, because I mapped that how many people feel happy, whether really people feel happy, envy, or what would be your responses, and many other things. And whereas, forms of exploitation by the research supervisors, there are many supervisors who sit on the heads of the students, research scholars, and they will say that, see, examining answer sheets, domestic help, and sexual harassment. There is a wonderful reading or a paper that has been written by Vandana in gender studies, how in BHU, a Brahmin professor talks about certain insulting, demeaning kind of language. I'll just tell you one sentence. When a Dalit girl student goes and tells that, sir, these days it is very hot, so I can't come. So this professor, shameless professor, and this stupid professor who says, I'm sorry to say this sentence, but it is also important to debate. He says, yes, abhi shadi hua, garmi badhta hai tumko. Matlab, just you got married, so therefore the heat increases in the body. This is, I'm not saying anything. You can go back and see this study which has been done by Vandana in gender studies. So such kind of, dehumanizing way of, things that happens in the university spaces, body shaming, gaining emotional sympathy, exploiting and stealing the data. What happened in Kerala, MG University? This girl went on fighting, still she is struggling. She went on to fast, her thesis, her data was, was taken out by his, teacher and, got published. Okay. So all such kind of, campus predators were prevailing in this university system. And now maybe I can wind up, Mahesh. There are many other things which I don't want to bring, but what is the way out? Professor Thorat in his report also, he mentioned about, how do we address these problems? It's a very serious problem. It's a very serious problem. And our students are becoming so vulnerable even in contemporary times. Otherwise, why, a person like Payal Tadvi, who is a medical doctor, who has been mocked and, completely, dehumanized by or degraded by her, peer group, and they're scot-free. They're scot-free. Mr. Podile Appa Rao is free now, scot-free. What happened with Balmukund and Anil Kumar Meena in AIMS? They're scot-free. IITs, they're all predators. They're all, they openly say that, no, you don't deserve to get educated. How to deal with this problem? Yes, there is a problem. And now, how do we address these problems? And in fact, I asked in my questionnaire that, do we need any kind of, legal remedy to tackle this discrimination? So at least, 70% of students said that yes. Some said that no, the existing rules itself is enough to address the problem. 2013 guidelines, if universities implement seriously, that will address the problem. In fact, I have filed RTA to collect the data and show. And my book also contains that RTA data. Randomly, I picked up universities. And I have shown that, how universities are completely not serious in addressing this problem. So therefore, when I asked the question whether legal, remedy is very important to tackle this discrimination, 70% students said that yes, it is very important. Because like ragging, anti-ragging, ragging is a criminal offense. But why not, caste discrimination? Why not caste discrimination? Because ragging, one student who died with this ragging long back, and therefore he was a bureaucrat's son, and that bureaucrat was very strong, very influenceable bureaucrat, and therefore he fought and he got this act happen, and it becomes a legal offense. Why can't this can become a legal offense? So therefore, 70% have said that yes, it is very important to address the problem of discrimination. So therefore, SC/ST cells, equal opportunity cells, they becomes rubber stamps. Anti-discrimination officer who is appointed by the UGC, who doesn't know the definition of discrimination. They're the people who are sitting on as anti-discrimination officer. Universities are supposed to send the entire data, every annual data to UGC about the 2013 guidelines. But at 90% of universities, they don't send. Now, how do we address this problem? We need to cultivate radical empathy. How do we do that? How do we do that? Why can't, most teachers lost sight of the fact that the classroom is a space rife with histories embodied with the subjectives of students. And an education that strives to make its students into questioning subjects runs the risk of challenging traditional norms. It hopes to impart a critical perspective, a lens through which traditional values and familial cultural aspects are relooked at times even critiqued. While most students grapple with the destabilizing phase of creative confusion, for some it can turn into a painfully difficult experience akin to the identity crisis. This is the situation. Perhaps even more important than transacting the prescribed syllabi in the holding and containing the presence of the peers and teachers who can listen, empathize, and offer themselves as a reliable, non-competitive circle of care. Care is important. What is essential is a humane classroom. Then, where intellectual discourse on transformative politics are accompanied by an authentic reception of the subjective life of each and every student, not only Dalit student. The second requirement is an institutional administration that keenly receives and values students as growing adults with valid positions, even when they sometimes challenge the established institutional positions. Administration is completely, ruthless. They impose fines, 10,000 rupees fine on BAPSA students in JNU when they protested against fee hike. Just for example, I'm telling. In fact, I mapped that how the ways of surveillance that is increased in the campuses. Now, how administration imposing, all kinds of restrictions, CCTV cameras, CCTVs, police cases, all kinds of things in this, work. Then an administration that is not afraid of students or of going beyond the letter of the rule in exceptional circumstances, and one which encourages dialogue across difficult issues, goes a long way for fostering self-confidence in its students. It needs to build self-confidence rather than creating havoc in the campuses. And lastly, what are requisites or definite programs which analyze the reasons for scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, OBC students dropping out of these elite institutions? You know what happens in our institutions now? Eminence, institutions of eminence, like Delhi University, where I am teaching. This doesn't even have any kind of, minimal responsibility to send the annual report to UGC. And it is institution of eminence. And in fact, for all universities and colleges, there is a thing called NAC, assessment, National Aggregation Council assessment. In this NAC assessment, many things are there, but not how many Dalit students are dropping out, how many Dalit students are getting less marks, how discrimination can become part of this entire assessment. No, dropouts. They never ask about such kind of uncomfortable questions or assessing, while giving this upgradation. A grade, A plus, A minus, all kinds of, nonsense. Therefore, these problems, students dropouts out of these elite institutions and seek to ameliorate the situation. The annual rankings of these institutions based on placements, alumni, research projects, faculty publications, etc. should also ponder on the dropouts, suicides, different forms of discrimination and harassment, and non-implementation of reservations, both in faculty recruitments and administration. In fact, my second chapter, which deals about with the data, it talks about, admissions, recruitments in universities, central universities, state universities, deemed universities, IITs, IIMs. Entire data is being given there. And ironically, the NEP facilitates multiple exit policy. Instead of making education as compulsory for the students, they provided now. No, those who have money, they can study. In the beginning, I started with this. And this has provided a lot of exits. And these exits are nothing but, in the name of skill development and one way of pushing the majority of SC/ST students to withdraw from the formal education, to deny them fellowships, seats, and all kinds of, the entire idea of education is being completely denied. So how, and in fact, networking is another important, solution, which I proposed. Networking, student networking, coming with, sitting and, talking and engaging with students is very important to address these problems. So until unless there are many things which I haven't presented, maybe, and the soft copy is available. The soft copy is, see, the book cost is 12,000. Don't buy the book. No author will say this. I'm telling you, don't buy until unless South Asia edition comes. South Asia edition comes, maybe 1,000, 1,200 might be there. That is also too much for students. Soft copy is available. Please read. Please circulate. And almost in 6 websites, it is being circulated. Okay, I don't care about all this copyright and all these things. It is supposed to be reached. Therefore, more works will come out, and this problem need to be seriously addressed. So I stop here. Thank you so much, Mahesh and our friend, the entire team of Boston Study Group, giving me this opportunity to come and share my whatever it's a beginning of the journey of on this particular topic. Thank you so much, and Jai Bhim. I have done a lot of things, but I was not able to really put forward many other things, honestly. But please read.
Thank you so much, Professor Sukumar. Literally, I don't have words to express, the kind of feelings and my heartful thanks to you, because more than a professor, you are an activist. As you rightly said, um, please mute yourself. I request the participants to mute yourself. And so, yeah, so more than a professor, you are an activist, and it's heartbreaking to listen about the suicides, like why someone would take their life. Like, life is the most important thing in anyone life, and their families. So this, as you rightly said, this needs to be taken very serious, and it needs to be investigated, and like something needs to be done. So with that, I open the session for any questions. So I request the participants to raise your hand using Zoom. We'll take question after question, and if you cannot raise your hand and ask a question, you can type the question in the chat box here. We'll watch the chat box as well. And please be brief with your question. You can make a brief comment as well. And I would like to thank Professor Sukumar on behalf of the Boston Study Group. He's so generous that he said, like, you don't need to buy the book, you can read the soft copy, and that's like the most radical generosity. Thank you, Professor Sukumar, for that. So we'll go one by one. So Harish Mehra, please unmute yourself and ask your question. Thank you. You are not able to unmute.
Yes, right. I have one question. First, thanks to Mr. Professor for such a great lecture. It's always a treat to watch and listen to his lectures. So my question is not from for him. My question is for BSG group. I just want to ask one question, because your group is based in USA. I just want to know that the upper class people, the oppressor class in India, they discriminate with the SC, ST people that we know. They treat them badly, they discriminate, they exploit them. But when these people go to America, these so-called upper caste or oppressor class, when they get the same treatment for the white racist people of the America, how do they feel and how do they react to it? I just want to know from you, the scholars of BSG. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, the brief answer to your question is that they fight here, saying they're the people of color and non-white, and they ask for more diversity, inclusion. But when we start questioning about their practices, not only in US but also back in India, discriminating the lower caste, they keep quiet. So yeah, that's like the double standards. It's
double standard,
yeah.
hypocrisy.
And yeah, hypocrisy, like even like as you see in equality labs, Professor Sukumar referred to equality labs, and the work done by several other Ambedkarite organizations like ANA, BSG, and the GNF, and like several other organizations. There is continuous evidence that they treat the lower caste, especially Dalits, in a very different way, even in US. So we fight, that's a reason the organizations such as BSG exist here, to question and to educate and to challenge these kind of mindsets. Thank you, Harish.
Thank you.
And now let's go to Anil Wagde. Brother Anil, please unmute yourself and make your comment or question.
Mahesh, shall we do one thing? There are certain questions has been already typed in the chat box, sent in the chat box. Shall we quickly take those and then we'll give others to talk? I mean, how? I mean, is it okay? Quickly, I can go through the chat box. See, I'm going through. You don't worry about that. I'm going through. I'm picking up only questions. Ashish Malik, you said that, I mean, how did you collected the data? Did you collect the data from the NCSC, SC, NCST? I think many complaints against the discrimination are not coming into the. Of course, yes, it is not coming. In fact, I've collected the data from the field. 600 students from 10 universities exclusively to conduct this study, which I went to the universities, identified the samples. Chain ball sampling, and then I identified a purpose using purposive sampling also. So different kind of methods I used to identify and then talk to them. Of course, I have collected data from the government sites. Ashish's report I have utilized to map the data. So therefore, and also many other, like for example, Thorat committee's report, Mungekar committee's report, and Abdul Nefse Commission report on this, many Viva and other kind of things. So I have consulted the data, and I also utilized a different kind of secondary sources who have conducted research for their own purpose, and brought those things into this. Now, Jayesh, even the fellowship for SC/ST OBCs, National Fellowship for SC/ST OBCs is also awarded through the same national eligibility test. Also, this is not considered equal to UGC JRF for the API purpose. Yes, see, these are all different ways of, curtailing the opportunities, that has been provided over a period of time. So what they say that, so your fellowship is not on par equal with JRF, so therefore we will not consider your, case. So all kinds of, ways of filtering, or pushing wherever there is a scope that, you just, dilute them, or, doesn't allow them to get into the system. Then the new thing that is happening in Delhi University, in fact, one of our, Dalit officer who talked to me, and in fact, Disha Wadekar, who is also part of this, helpline, who is also a lawyer, practicing lawyer. She is having a helpline for these kind of, issues. And in fact, they are planning to write a representation. The issue is that suppose if you are applying for a job, and then you are also, applying, if you are applying only under the reserved category, what this administration is doing, they are not considering this applicant to compete with the general category. So therefore, you completely categorize. Okay. So this is a major, kind of interpretation. This is nothing but, the subject of interpretation, how you are trying to prevent these communities. So we need to represent, we need to convey that, look, unreserved means not reserved for only the upper caste or other communities. Anybody can compete apart the reserved quota which has been allotted. So therefore, continuous, engagement with commissions and other things is very important. So yeah, you are right. These kind of API purpose, all these things, they are trying to, sideline these things. Swaroop, even if scholarships are granted under the scheme to qualified students, university and government departments tries all its excuses to slow up the process of it. And because of this, students need to defer admissions or drop to plan for higher studies or go for unsuccessful alternative, options. Yeah, national overseas scholarships. Yes, see, national overseas scholarships. One, couple of students in Delhi, when, the government, is completely, it is bizarre. It doesn't want to include the topics which our students want to study. You can't study caste. You can't study discrimination. You can't study anything goes against the culture, because the UGC has given them a kind of, outline of this kind of research need to be promoted. In fact, ministry itself comes out with such kind of, guidelines. So national overseas scholarships is a major, they don't release funds. If they release funds, they don't release in time. All kinds of, bottlenecks. And then over a period of time, as you rightly said, they will try to drop themselves. Today, one professor calls me from somewhere else, and they say, these two poor ST PhD students joined in the course from Warangal. I got a call and saying that, sir, please go and help do something in the ministry. See, at personal level, one can do, but why can't it be as a policy level? Why is that? A systematic, kind of thing can be generated to release the, scholarship money. So all kind of, things, especially when it comes to scholarships for SC, ST, OBCs, they face all kinds of, problems. As I rightly said, fellowships is, as if that they say that, why should we pay public money for the public institution? Why should taxpayers' money? Now, what is that these, institutions like, Geo University, which is yet to come, but, the same taxpayers' money, 1,000 crores is being, given to these, universities. One need to question. First time in the history of educational policy that private universities are kept on par equal with the public universities. So this is a problem. This is a problem. We need to fight at two levels now. Not only at public institutions, we also need to fight at private institutions. The battle is, increasing. Social justice government departments find some stupid reasons to delay the process. Yes, of course, all administrative, reasons, which is nothing, there is nothing to be really, believed. Okay. Yeah, testimonials of scholarship students. Yes. No, in this work which I have written, one respondent who got ICSSR fellowship, university fellowship, left it, got ICSSR fellowship because the amount is high, and ICSSR fellowship, in the process, she got into UGC SCST fellowship, and therefore administration, as if that they are giving money from their pocket, and they harassed her so much so that till last date she was struggling, running to pillar to post to, because their tension that if she can't submit by within the time stipulated time, she will lose fellowship. So, all kinds of, things, and those who can, Senthil Kumar, the best thing is Senthil Kumar. His fellowship was stopped because he was not able to pass the basic language test, which is nothing to do with that. He did his master's and, all central universities, MPhil, PhD, joined in Hyderabad University because he was not able to pass his language test in the chemistry, nothing to do with language. The department innovatively comes out with this kind of idea, introduces language as compulsory, like what it introduces in IITs, and they call them as preppies. All kinds of names are given to them. And this boy, finally, he asked his parents to not to rear pigs so that he can help his family for, sending the fellowship money. But finally, fellowship stops and he commits suicide. So these are all testimonies. Those who can afford can take 2 degrees at a time. Here, many people are not able to afford one, but they say 2 at a time. Yes, because, they think that, everybody has money, but they don't know the realities. Suresh, you're right. Because, who can pay money, commercialization of education. Make money. In our Delhi University, you want to study journalism, you have to pay hefty amount. Make money, mint money. And in different colleges have different fee structures. Imagine, development fee, you collect 20,000, 30,000. University colleges has given free hand to loot the students. Where does, our students will stand? There is no uniform. You want one nation, one exam, one nation, one uniform, one nation, one thing, all kinds of, things. But why not this one nation, one syllabus, one university, one education system? State is supposed to open its eyes. Where can we get the soft copy? I think, I texted my email ID and also I texted my 2 numbers. If you can text me through WhatsApp, I can send you the book soft copy. This is Sunita and who's Jayesh, yeah. And yeah, very few students from SCSTs are using overseas scholarship from Telangana compared to other communities. Need to be probed further. Yes, actually, let me say, I have seen very interesting, disturbing data in this overseas fellowships also among SCSTs. Okay, why can't? I mean, there is a lobby which really, facilitates SC students from particular states. Why it is that? Why can't we democratize these fellowships within the community? Now, my personal request is, when you people are all there, I think we all need to democratize these fellowships. No state is supposed to have capitalize these fellowships. I'm telling you. You can go look into the data and you will find out which state is capitalizing it. I'm not against it. Somebody is utilizing. Good. But please, it needs to be democratized. So Telangana, Najibullah, my classmate, Najibullah, thank you. You raised a very, we both were master's classmates. Thank you. You came to listen to me. And then, डिस्क्रिमिनेशन पीएचडी स्कॉलर्स के साथ भी बहुत होता है, चाहे वो दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी हो या जेएनयू, कोई भी हो, कहीं पे भी जो कास्ट होता है वहां पे डिस्क्रिमिनेशन होता ही है, इसमें शक का बात नहीं है। जेएनयू हो बहुत प्रोग्रेसिव है, हम सोचते हैं जेएनयू जैसे जगह बहुत प्रोग्रेसिव है, ऐसा कुछ प्रोग्रेसिव नहीं है। वहां पे कास्टिस्ट लोग दुनिया भर के भरा हुआ वहां पे ऐसे इंस्टीट्यूट्स में, दिखाने के लिए हमको बहुत लिबरल बताते हैं वो लोग, बट वही लोग प्रैक्टिस करता है डिस्क्रिमिनेशन। तो ये इट्स अ वेरी ओवरऑल प्रॉब्लम। 10 यूनिवर्सिटीज में जो मैंने ये स्टडी किया, अब मैं सोच रहा हूं वो जो 80% डेटा है, एक सीरीज ऑफ अनदर 1 या 2 किताब लिखने के लिए टाइम मिला तो, और मैं मान के चलिए, आप लोग यकीन नहीं करोगे, मैं ज्यादा दुश्मनियां ज्यादा हो रहा है मेरे को, देयर मोर एनिमीज आई एम becoming to me rather than friends. My own department has trolled against me. My own department, I can say with evidence. When I they're scared now, they're scared, many people are scared. Anyway, I don't want to bring my this thing into this. What kind of institutional interventions are required to deal with the issues of discrimination and systemic exclusion of reserved category students? Democratization of the bureaucracy within the administration, number one. Number two, networking, giving that empathy. What I said, in America we have blacks, who come together. They have institutional mechanism. They have particular concern to address these problems, racial discrimination. Why can't we have it? Why can't we institutionalize a legal remedy for this? And secondly, even within the community, that we need to sit and debate about it. Bharat Rathod, I have gone through your reading. I have used your reading in my book. Thank you so much. You came, you attended my, talk. Until unless, if we don't debate it all, multiple forms of discrimination, nuances, हमको पता ही नहीं चल जाता है, पता नहीं होता है ये किस तरीके से डिस्क्रिमिनेशन का वो हो रहा है। मतलब बहुत न्यूएंसली, बहुत वो तो आपको सटल काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स, we need to map it. An act is very important to address this problem, Bharat. Of course, when it comes to networking, there is a PIL which is lying in Supreme Court. Both Payal Tadvi's mother and Rohit Vemla's mother, they came to Delhi and they filed a PIL, but still it doesn't even move ahead.
Sir, we'll hold on with the questions in the chat for a minute, because people are raising their hands since a long time.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So Anil Wagde, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm using my wife's phone. The other phone died, so if you may.
Yeah, please go ahead and ask your question or comment. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is more of a comment than a question.
Okay.
I have been, congratulations on the team, on the book, publication of the book, and a lot of good work that is happening. We have been active in this space for reservation in the PhD courses at IIMs and the faculty reservation in IIM. This is through the global empowerment work. We have filed a public interest litigation in IIM Ahmedabad, against IIM Ahmedabad in Ahmedabad High Court for non-implementation. The wheels of justice move ever so slowly, as you know. We had met Professor D'Souza, IIM Ahmedabad director, requesting him to implement along with Suraj Yengde, Dr. Suraj Yengde, and Arun Khobragade. Three of us had met IIM Ahmedabad director. We had an hour-long discussion. All the logic that he gave, all the issues that he raised, we were able to kind of strike them off by our logic. But finally he said, the faculty is not ready for implementation of reservation in the PhD courses and the faculty reservation. It's such a sad story that this is the law of the land, and it's the faculties who are obviously the upper caste decide not to implement that. We also had met I am Calcutta director for the same. Coming to the activism, we have collected a lot of data on all the 20 IIMs on how many students have applied across categories, physically handicapped, SC, ST, OBC, how many applied, how many were shortlisted, how many were selected, and so on. While we have not been successful yet with IIM Ahmedabad, the pressure it has built on the other IIMs is enormous. Only we know, having worked in the system. The RTIs that we have raised also have put a lot of pressure on these IIMs, and hopefully things will get better once hopefully this case gets settled in Ahmedabad High Court. And we are not really expecting very positive. We will probably end up in the Supreme Court for this case. But the case is likely to be listed next month for the further hearing. We had to give a further affidavit saying that for more than a year, the case has not yet been listed. So I again filed an affidavit personally saying that please request it as soon as possible. Now, given that, hopefully it gets listed this coming month. So that's just I wanted to share some of the battles. I think we also need to kind of look at how do we move forward? What do we do? One of the challenge we have had regarding this public interest litigation is, if it is a writ petition instead of a public interest litigation, what it means is, if there are 5 students who come forward and say that I had applied, I had the eligibility, I was qualified, but because you are not implementing reservation, we didn't get the opportunity to do PhD. If we are able to file the writ petition by named applicants, the things move much faster. But we have been unable to get, or maybe we didn't reach the right people for filing such cases. The PhD application season will start soon. In fact, it has started. Some of the advertisements are already out. And if there are students who are who are eligible, applying, and if they do not get selected and they reach out to us, I will leave my WhatsApp number in the chat. If they are willing to file the case, we will bear the legal expenses. The community will bear the legal expenses. Some of us will bear the legal expenses, but we need some people who are willing to come forward, show the courage. And legal ways is, of course, one of the multiple ways to fight this. I'll stop here. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Brother Anil Wagde, for all the great work that you all are doing here. And next, let's go to the next question by Prajwal. Prajwal, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mahesh. And firstly, I'd like to thank the Boston Study Group for hosting Professor Sukumar. And thank you so much, Professor, for your discourse and the book. So many congratulations on that. So I have, 2 questions, rather. I mean, you discussed about so many things, but one thing that stood out for me, and I believe even, Baba Sahib did a lot of, he spent a lot of time unifying us. But to this day, we do see that people within our community, they sort of oppress. I mean, as to say, there are subcastes within our community. And then when you add religion and so on and so forth, then, it adds more complexity to it. Like, how can we sensitize our own folks? How can we unify them because the more we look at it, I mean, people are becoming siloed instead of coming together as a cohesive mass. So what is it that we're trying to do? Because there are other things, which we can also, sort of propose as solutions, but then those things are not just under our control. We have to sort of, go through, many other channels, right? I mean, we cannot circumvent the Savarna community when it comes to sort of implementing fair practices, or when it comes to accountability or transparency in education or higher educational institutions, or the so-called institutions of eminence. But within our community, we could do something. But so I'm like, what is it that we can do, and how can we sort of ensure that the the oppression within our community, or the or the biases that we hold, how can we overcome them? Of course, Baba Sahib proposed intercaste marriages to be one of the solutions, but it's a very slow moving process, and it has to be done organically, right? I mean, we can't just forcibly ask two people from two different practices to sort of just get together for the sake of overcoming this barrier. So what is it that you propose? And the other thing that I wanted to ask is, like, in the US, we have the the institutions which are meant specifically for let's say Harvard University in Washington DC, which is specifically meant for Black American folks, where they sort of govern and they also admit students from the oppressed community. So that is sort of a safe haven for them. Can we have something on similar lines in India? Yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Can I
Thank you.
take other questions also and then respond?
Yeah. Okay, so let's go with all the questions. So Suresh, please go ahead and ask your question. Suresh.
Yes. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. It was very nice listening to such great session, like in the data, everything. So I have two experiences, so I just want to share. So one is, like, recently government is coming up with saying that we are doing special recruitment drives, something like studies, all universities, all are they are doing. So one thing really they are doing is, like, so there's, for example, I belong to economics category, economics. So they say that, okay, special recruitment drive in economics, and that too for a specific subject like the econometrics, mathematical economics.
Oh, I think it is lost. So let's go with the next question from Atul Shinde. Please go ahead.
Hi, Jayvin, to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Boston Group for organizing this talk, and a lot of congratulations to Professor Sukumar. I know it takes a lot of time and a lot of challenges to gather this data. So we all are getting this data handy, so it's really, I would like to appreciate you and congratulate. So a real quick question from me. Anil Waldeji has already answered a couple of them. So I thought of removing the hand, but just let me put it. We know this discrimination does exist here, and it's not something new. And our community, our students, our people have protested a lot of time, but the mainstream media does not pay attention, and it goes unnoticed, right? So what we can do? One of the way is obviously the legal battle, and that's being taken care by the people, but that's not helping because that's very slow. Because at the top level in the bureaucracy, all of the Brahminical mindset people, right? They are sitting there, so obviously they would not, pay attention. So what else we can do to solve this problem?
Yeah. Thank you. Your question is noted. Professor will get back to it.
Yeah.
Let's go with the next question. Ashish Malik. Ahish, right? I don't know. Sorry.
Yes, Ashish Malik.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mahesh. And first of all, I would like to appreciate Professor Narayanan for his nice talk. So I have a very specific question. Professor Narayan's many times said that about the higher education systems, and particularly he mentioned that about that IIM, IITs, and all these things. So as we know that in universities there is some reservation policy, either it is assistant professor, associate professor, or professor, or whatever it is, but either they are maintaining or not, this is the different issue, but they have some policy. But in institute like that IIM and IIT, the so-called that Institute for National Importance, so they do not have any reservation policy for the faculty position. Only they have the reservation policy for the initial stage, that is for the assistant professors. But that too also there is one statement that is without compromising the quality that SC/ST student will get prefer for the SC/ST student will get the prefer for the reservations. So my question is that without compromising the quality, suppose if we take one example, there is one SC/ST student and another is that the general student, and both are getting 20 marks. So now they will consider that without compromising the quality. Then in that case that the SC/ST student will get the preference. If both are getting the 20 marks, that means without compromising the quality. Then I think it is a vague reservation policy. Instead of that, they can do the toss. They can do the toss for unreserved and reserved candidate. And then because so if that without compromising that I have complaint against that these statements without compromising that quality. What is this without compromising the quality? If both the students get the 20 marks, then they will give the reference to the SC/ST student. Then what is this? It is better to make a toss.
Okay, thank you, Ashish ji, for your question. Let's go to Dr. Venkat Morozu. Brother, please unmute and ask your question or make your comment.
Yeah. Thank you, Mahesh. Hello?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, Professor Sukumar, thanks for very, I think, very academically rigorous work and, taking pains. I know most of the time, even though it's a seemingly obvious thing, unless you prove it, meticulously, research and document doesn't gather a lot of weightage. So thanks for doing that, hard work. So just my question is, before this Mandal Commission recommendations were like a OBC reservation was implemented in central institutions around 2006-07, right? Starting from
8.
So I was really, take my own part, even though sitting in US at that time, I know most of the OBC, I don't know, that exists, the consciousness, so most of the Dalit organizations actually were really fighting. You mentioned Anup and their team with JNU students and all that. I was actually working with them. So that's a sad part. I mean, this so-called OBC category people are still not very, very conscious about their rights. But anyway, it happened. So I was hoping, given that the distribution, I know you're from Telugu states. What we see in Telugu states being this, OBC, SC, ST, especially in Telangana, we had I don't know. I mean, I grew up in 70s and I went to college in 80s. So that time, with a lot of communist influence or whatever, it was a very, very little caste, this thing. And also in the campuses, we used to have such a good camaraderie we hardly used to discuss caste, but we were like reserved category, unreserved. This is the only debate, and we all used to be together. It was, now looking back, it was a wonderful time. We hardly had a caste, but yes, we were all united in the terms of when it comes to reservation, and that's the only fight we used to have a lot of times. So given this dynamic, I was hoping once these OBCs get into the central institutions, will there be, and otherwise earlier, like 15-20% of SC/ST is very, very, dominated by these, 80%. They didn't have these numbers. But after OBC, there might be some change, okay? But, I don't, if especially looking at the trends and all that, as OBC students, especially in Northern India, I don't know whether they're very, very friendly with, Dalits and SC/STs. So what is your observation on that dynamic, that, it was a significant change, but it has done little to looks like a Dalit. That's what my observation is. Yeah, please comment.
Thank you, Professor Sukumar, for your information. Dr. Venkat Marozu is one of the leading Ambedkarite leaders here. He is the co-founder of Boston Study Group and Ambedkar International Center. So thank you. Let's go to Jayesh. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, sir. My question is, when now they have introduced, this thing, professor of practice in universities, like in the national education policy also they have introduced this, and they have made it like some positions in the faculty positions will be given to the somebody who has a experience in industry. So what they call it is professor of practice. So my question is how it is going to, because I don't know whether they are going to implement reservation within that professor of practice also or not. And so what would be its impact on Dalit academia? That is my question. And the second thing is, we are always discussing, mostly we are discussing about public institutions, public universities. So in an RTI, one RTI for a private university, it was observed that out of like 80 faculty members, only one SC professor was there. He was also on an assistant professor position. There was no ST professor, no OBC professor, not even at the assistant professor level. So how do you see this kind of discrimination in private universities, and what can be done to resolve this in the private university sector also?
Okay, thank you, Jayesh. So now we are done with all the questions. We have got some questions in the chat, but I request Professor Sukumar to respond with these questions briefly. Then we'll go to those questions. Yeah, thank you.
Quickly, I'll start from the reverse. I'll start with the Jayesh question, and then I'll go further, down. Yes, I mean, see. Now, this professor of practice is nothing but, it's a backdoor entry for the people who can be accommodated. Like, for example, someone from philanthropy who is part of a philanthropic organization like RSS or, Saraswati Vidya Mandirs, or, some businessman who sponsors, these, political parties, or ideologically who want to bring their own ideological concerns into the university system. What they do, for them it is no need of PhD, because PhD was mandatory. So now UGC comes out with a wonderful idea saying that no, PhD is not mandatory, so that anybody can come in and become part of the university system. So there is no specific qualification that which was mandatory to become as a professor has been completely removed. Now, what will be its implications? Its implications will be very simple, that it will first scuttle the reservations, the positions, not only in academics now, as you know that, the joint secretary level in UPSC, or sorry, in ministries, there are 10 joint secretaries. Out of 10 joint secretaries, not even a single SC/ST has been appointed in this, lateral entry kind of, things. So therefore, the impact of this in the university system is going to be in near future, that it will have its own impact on the reservations, number one. Number two, they want to kill the democratic procedure as I said, democratic procedure, or the norms that has been evolved over a period of time. So what will happen to the existing faculties within the university system with all kinds of qualifications, without qualifications, where there would be a kind of internal contradictions, and that will be much more impact on the academic atmosphere within the classroom, within the university system. And yeah, private universities, see, that's what, it is blatant. Private universities, you can't even raise your voice. One professor from a private university approached me and said that, they're not promoting him, though he has qualifications, a foreign degree, with good qualifications, good publications, but a person who has a Brahminical, caste background has been promoted. And for them, in private institutions, it's not mandatory to implement reservation. There is no reservation at all. So therefore, for them, it is very, very easy. And now you see that, equally now around 450 private universities has come up. So what happens to our, the idea of reservation policy is one big stage. And then Venkat Morraju sir, yes, I also belong, I'm a Mandal quota student, Mandal product. 91 when I joined in Hyderabad University, the Mandal agitation was on hype. It was only SC/STs, majority of SC/STs who fought for this, for provisions for these reservations for OBCs. Now, what happened over a period of time? There was no consciousness, not even at that point of time. Now also, 22 years, 30 years, even now, many OBC seats goes vacant. Number one. Number two, one thing is that the lack of information, number one. Number two, the lack of consciousness. In North India, you need badly Periyar's readings. But still, in 200-point roster struggle, which we led in Delhi in 2019, when recruitments were in the entire recruitment process, that turned the 200-point roster to 13-point roster, we led a major struggle in Delhi University, which was an epic center. Generally, it used to be JNU, no DU. But in that this roster movement, there was a hope that OBCs will join, and also they joined. In fact, UP, Bihar, Rajasthan, many OBC communities, they stopped rails, rail roko, and it was a massive, success of this movement. But now, what is the future? Why they're not coming together? The only thing is that the politics of religion that is playing very crucial role. The accommodative politics by the OBC communities into the religious politics is one thing where they are completely becoming an anti-reservationist. Number one, though they are beneficiaries. Number two, therefore, that's what I read the data that why OBCs are very important to open their eyes and come and be part of the struggle. And secondly, sir, what you rightly raised, and I see that, caste census will really play a very major role. Good or bad, I'm not getting into that merits and demerits. But caste census will certainly open the debate of proportional representation. At least, whether how it is going to happen, what, therefore, at least there is some kind of debate that is happening in North India. That, mera hissa kahan pe, where is my share, So probably this might really help to realize their potential lacking within these, recruitments and many other things. Apart the religion. Now, what is happening? They're bringing religion, the state is bringing religion, pushing all these things aside. Therefore, religion is becoming a major, kind of thing. Back pushing the, caste, questions. Caste in colleges, again, still, SCs are separate, STs are separate, OBCs are separate. But ideological churning is necessary. Someone was also asking that, how one can, build the consensus. It is the ideological, pedagogical interventions, is very important. And therefore, where Prajwal was asking about this, why, when one question is that why we are poor and why we are discriminated, yes, this question need to be retrospected and introspected, in different ways. Pedagogical intervention is very important. The first generation of Dalit faculty's role are very important now. They need to stand with our students. They need to stand and introduce new pedagogy, because at least, in different contexts, new educational policy is giving a scope for these faculty to introduce, new syllabus. Why can't we stand and, introduce Ambedkar? I introduced Understanding Ambedkar first time when after joining in Delhi University. And it's a huge course, which is a huge demand in undergraduate colleges. Now they are trying to dilute it. I introduced Dalit Bhojan Thought from Buddha to Kanshiram till Kanshiram, Periyar, Ambedkar, Phule, Tarabai Shinde. Not that I'm saying that because of me, there are many other universities also are coming up like this. So pedagogical challenge is very important to strengthen our people with consciousness. And then establishing institutions. Yes, you are right. There were different institutions that were set up in US. They have different operational mechanism. But why not in our country? Though there might be some, because there, with this consciousness, movement, they have at least, addressed the problem, though the problem is still prevailing. But in India, we are yet to start debating about the caste issues. So I think it might help. It also might, perpetuate separate kind of, segregating again, okay, you have your own institutions, we will have our own institutions. You don't come into me, you don't come into us. So therefore, again, there would be some merits and demerits into this also. And then, support structure, is very important. We need to create a support structure for our students. We need to create support structure for our teachers. And many, like organizations like Boston Study Group, many other, students organizations like Dalit Students Unions, Ambedkar Students Unions, and, the Ambedkar Phule Students Unions in IA, many places, Periyar study circles, they all must come together, as rightly, somebody was mentioning that, how do we, maybe, I think Boston Study Group can take an initiative to bring these, groups onto a particular platform and become a pressure group. And legal, institutional, and emotional support is important. Now, the other thing is that, Suresh, recruitments, yes, see, recruitments, how it is happening, why it is not happening, there is a data. Like, for example, in IITs, IIMs, it is not that, like Ashish Malik was asking about, reservations of faculty in IITs, IIMs are at entry level. Sir, ye kisi ka baap ka jagiri nahi hai. It is not the spaces of bloody some, upper caste, hooligans who are sitting on these institutions. These are all public funded institutions. They all comes under the constitution. Why is that? I know that, we know that they are not implementing, but this can't we become a pressure group and then say that, no, look, you are not beyond the constitution. So that you have to implement the constitutional norms. IIMs and IITs, what kind of greatness which they have, did, they are doing research on cow dung and cow urine. They don't want to do research on, discrimination or any other thing, many other, social concerns, poverty, many other things, which they don't want to do. Scientific, reasons to, figure out this. So we have, as, part of this, discourse, we need to question these institutions. And then Ashish, I addressed Ashish Malik question. But, this 2020 marks, what is this 2020 mark? Sir, this marking is highly, prejudiced. I'm telling. As a teacher who is teaching in Delhi University, I can see that, SC, ST, OBCs are most meritorious. The cultural capital which the others have. If we get at least 1%, our people will do miracles in many disciplines, in many. If you see that social media at times, it keeps on, popping with different kind of postings that OBCs, SCs, the top. Their merit is completely scuttled down. So, okay, so the quality is a myth. Quality is a myth, in the sense, how do we the myth of the merit, book is, it talks about, how the corporatization of education, both back in US and here, how one needs to understand, and then, yeah, I think mostly I have done. I don't know if I have missed any this thing. I think most of the time.
Thank you, Professor. You're really working hard. So there are two questions in the chat. Let me just read them for you. One is from Manish. He's asking, now when the NEP, the new educational policy, is discriminatory to the oppressed people, what do you suggest? How should we respond?
See, new education, it is again, let this again, I am not correcting you, but the institutional mechanism, how it's, no, it's not new education, it's national education policy. Are we not part of this nation? Does new education policy talks about discrimination, caste? Nothing. Now it has created new exist policy. Instead of making it compulsory till your post-graduation or beyond that level, why can't this national educational policy can make education as a compulsory? You can't open private universities at one level, and you can't open the self-financed courses in the university system. You open all these things at at one level, and you are asking that students that if you can't study, please drop out. What logic is this? You don't have money, so you drop down. You can't go beyond 1 year, you'll get diploma. You go beyond 2 years, you get some kind of certificate, and then you complete your 3 years, you will get something. All kinds of you're facilitating, in fact. So don't read, don't study. Those who have money, they will study, and all these kind of things. Now, how do we address this problem? We need to have a massive movement. We need to have a massive movement, at least to make education as compulsory from KG to PG and beyond. It is state's responsibility. You can't leave it on the shoulders of the people, communities who are suffering for many, decades and centuries. Where do they get? They don't even have, basic money to survive in the university system. If they give fellowships, you stop them. You are scuttling down the funding for education from 3 to 2%. So therefore, we need to demand more for education, more for inclusive education, more for compulsory education, rather than creating this exit policy. And this exit policy is nothing but excluding policy. Minorities, you are going back to the caste system. You are going back to the caste system. Those who can do a pottery job, you go and do pottery thing. That skill, very nicely, nuancely named, skill job, skill orientation. We don't want this bloody skills which we are suffered for centuries. We want our people need to become doctors, engineers, professors, collectors, bureaucrats, scientists. We don't want to become cycle rickshaw repair wala, electrician, beautician. Let these Brahmins go and do this work. Let our people go and encroach on the positions. Then that should be the the spirit. It is this new education policy is creating all kinds of hierarchies. So I think we need a massive movement. Therefore, Prime Minister is scared. Prime Minister is scared now. He's saying that pen is also problematic. Okay, gun to problematic. We also do believe. We believe that gun is a problematic. Okay. Through revolutionary measures you cannot do, but at least through democratic measures where pen plays a very important role. Critical engagement, yesterday's statement. Democracy is in deep soup. So education must become a compulsory tool for emancipation, as Baba Sahib used to dream. And that is being completely scuttled down.
Thank you, Professor Sukumar. So we will take last two questions and close this. We are already
Sure. Yeah.
over time. So one is from Samuel. He asked in a chat, what are the other crucial areas or policies such as NEP, which we need to watch out and put our foot down in the upcoming future?
In fact, I mean, education and health. I was discussing with somebody that, someone was asking about, I mean, how education, what are the other issues, like, what our Samuel was asking about. See, education and health. These are the two things which our communities, especially, we need to be owned. We need to be more cautious. That entire privatization and corporatization, what we have witnessed for the past many decades, our people are becoming the victims of this privatization model. So health and education, rest things will take care.
Thank you.
There is still, all kinds of private hospitals, all kinds of, private educational institutions from each and every gully you can have universities, and hospitals where our people doesn't have money to go and, study, and our people doesn't have money to go and get their health checkup. And ultimately, human resources are completely in collapse.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So last question from Rajaratnam Talari. Please unmute and make your brief question. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me opportunity to ask question. It's relevant to education. Actually, we from SC background, converted as a Christian, and we have taken a BC certificate, BCC. Okay. We are not, it is saying 1% reservation is available. And if I look at the data and some universities, let's say 100 seats are there, there is no seat allocated for that. And whom we need to approach in this point, like how we will get a reservation in this case?
I think basically you're from which place, sir?
Actually, I am from Hyderabad.
Okay,
I was there in Boston for some time and I came back.
Okay. No, see, the thing is now if you're applying for certain positions at the state level, center level, they have different lists that has been prepared, who falls under which category. Okay. Now, whom to approach? Suppose if you are applying for some state category jobs, you need to approach to the state level welfare, like social welfare, department, because it falls under the social welfare itself. That is one thing. And also, probably, I'm not right. Maybe some minorities in commissions, but I'm not sure about it. But certainly, if the job profile falls under the state government, and if the job profile falls under the central government, I think the social welfare ministry and social welfare departments need to be approached. That's what I can say. Or maybe, if you are not getting any answer from any of them, maybe you can file an RTI and then get a response from the respective government ministries.
Okay.
So that the matter will be clear.
Yes, I'm just interested on that college seat allocation, especially like engineering college seat.
Then education minister also you can file RTI. Yeah, education and the social welfare minister, social justice or social welfare minister. And if they don't respond, file an RTI. I think that would be though they might not give you, but that's one way of trying.
Right. Oh, thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks to all the participants, and thank you, Professor Sukumar, for this very historical and thought-provoking lecture. It opened our for a lot of us this entire thing. That a lot of us are not aware. Thank you so much on behalf of the Boston Study Group. we heartfully thank you and we appreciate you, and we are looking forward to collaborate and engage with you in the future. Yeah, so Professor Sukumar kindly shared his number and his email details for those who are interested in his book. You can also write to the Boston Study Group.
I will share with you also. Yeah, so that you can also share. I will also share with you.
Yeah, we will get in. If you want to get in touch with Professor Sukumar, we'll also help you get in touch with him. So thank you. Thanks a lot. And we are supposed to close this call by 12:30, but thanks to all of your participation and the patience and generosity of Professor Sukumar, we could continue, and we had such a brainstorming session. Thank you all. You all can, I request the organizers from Boston Study Group to close this call, or others
Thank
can.
you, Mahesh. Thank you, Mahesh and other. Ashok, shall we talk on WhatsApp? Ashok want to talk to me. Ashok Mocherla. Hi, Ashok.
Yeah.
How are you?
Sure.
Unmute your.
Yeah, sorry. I'll give you a call on WhatsApp. Yeah, we'll talk.
Yeah. Great to see you here. You are in a very august gathering. So in Boston, not
I
not
think
in
I was here for a while. So
yeah. So how are you otherwise? Yeah. Okay. We'll chat. We'll talk. Ashok. You need to unmute.
I'll give you a call in 2 minutes. Okay.
Yeah. Okay then.
Yeah, I guess.
Thank you, Mahesh, and thank you, Hemant ji, and also all other Boston Study Group members. It's
sure.
great.
I think everyone can leave the meeting. So we are just waiting for our technical person to close the call. Okay. You please, you can just exit from the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you all.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Shall I sign off?
Yes. Thank you.
Bye, Jai Bhim. Stay safe.
Yeah.
Take care.
Jai Bhim.
Bye.
Thank you. Yeah. Bye.
Thank you all. Yeah. Bye.
Hi.
Close the meeting.